I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zeiss Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark.
Hello everybody, welcome to Arcane Mark. Today we're going to be building an encounter together with Twitch.
Yes, so everyone in chat, get your encounter ideas. But if you've built any of the other things together with us on our channel, then you know that we always start with a concept. Except with an encounter, it's one of the only times that you don't. So we're going to be showing off Pathfinder 2nd Edition's encounter building. That it's quick, it's relatively simple to do, but it's one of the only times you don't start with a concept. Why? Well, because when you are a GM or an adventure author and you need to write an encounter, there's one thing that you know before you know the concept, that you absolutely just know. Whereas when you're writing a monster for a bestiary, well, you need a concept.
Yeah.
So what is that thing? The level. Whether it's a published adventure or whether it's for your home game, you always know the level range that you actually are writing the encounter for. And you actually need that before the concept. It's the only time you do, more or less. There are probably some other times you might need the level first.
Welcome.
Hey, so put into the chat what level encounter you would like us to make. This is for what level of PCs the encounter is for. We can then have a range, and so we can decide how hard it's going to be, sort of based on the concept that we see after that.
Yeah, because some concepts are going to lend themselves more toward low-threat encounters versus moderate or severe, things like that. We got a 7.
Yep.
Got a 5.
And Linda here wrote the book on making complex encounters, by which I mean, in the Game Mastery Guide, she wrote the, she, as a freelance author, wrote the section on complex encounters.
We have a 7+.
Yes. We have 7, 5, 5, 7+. Let's see. Does anyone else have a level that you want this encounter to be that we're going to build? Some new people just came in, so just type a level, put it in chat. 13. All right, so we have 5, 5, 7, 7, 13. Let's see. I think that is currently 7 point. Like it's a little bit above 7. A 7.4, I think, is the mean. So if no one else has any level ideas, we can do 7.
Level 7.
All right. So we're going to do an encounter for level 7 PCs. Now, there's still a pretty wide range of what an encounter for level 7 PCs can be. It could even be trivial for them, in which case it goes even wider. So now that we know the encounters for level 7 PCs, I want a concept. Just type into chat any concept that you think sounds like a cool encounter. Just overall idea. It doesn't have to exactly state what monsters are going to be in it, but a concept for an encounter that works for level 7 PCs.
Yeah.
So, like, Titans are destroying the world and 5 gods descend is probably too much. Whereas we went into an old lady's basement and found dire rats in there is probably too little.
Yeah, and this concept could include some aspect of the way that elements within the encounter might interact with each other. If you're thinking like, oh, there's both the creatures and complex hazards, or it could be about like the thematics of the situation.
It could be as simple as like big solo boss fight in a cave.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to completely... In fact, as a concept, like, you don't have to, like, say everything that's in it. In fact, if you do, then we just built the encounter by voting for your concept, where you've already used the encounter builder because the concept had everything in it. So let's see if anyone has any conceptual ideas for an encounter that we can do. So type them up, put them in chat, we will vote. If no one has any concepts, we can always pick randomly. Alright, so we have solo boss fight on a bridge. Rickety bridge. Alright, so an encounter in a city under
a rickety bridge.
And we have an encounter in a city under siege.
Encounter in a city under siege.
So the encounter is sort of playing out the PC's part of the siege. In that case.
2 solid ideas so far.
So, Rickety Bridge, boss fight, and City Under Siege are our 2 so far. Any other ideas in the chat for our concept for the encounter? If you have them, here we go. It's a gang leader, which got some monstrous ruffians in their gang.
Gang leader with monstrous ruffians.
We've got an arena combat versus a minotaur and his gladiator friend.
Are we gonna start playing the Hades theme?
Yes, I think that may be Theseus.
Arena combat versus Minotaur.
Theseus is the joke.
And his gladiator friend.
A building where everything has turned to glass.
Where everything has turned into glass.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained a concept?
No, I think it's part of like the gladiatorial
thing.
Sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In the arena combat, if you beat the Minotaur first, then
priest of a death god who gets resurrected after being defeated and ascends as an unholy undead.
It's a 2-stage boss. Now, are we going to do extreme measures in the arena combat and the gladiator is going to be in a chariot? You never know. A cave's starting to collapse.
That is starting to collapse.
All right. Awesome. So those are good concepts. Let's put them into a vote. So pick your favorite concept here.
Boop.
We will build that encounter using the Pathfinder.
All of these, I see interesting ways to go with them.
Using the Pathfinder 2e encounter building guidelines.
Whether that's a variety of creature types, a variety of things about the area itself and the way that the surroundings might interact.
We have 1 vote for 4. 1 vote for 7. What of these 7 ideas do you want to see us build? 1 vote for 1. Another vote for 4. Another vote for 4. Okay, we're doing the Elysium boss fight from Hades. So let's say we wanted to make the Elysium boss fight from Hades. In fact, when we make like a YouTube thumb for this at YouTube, it should probably be of the Elysium boss fight from Hades because we are making it in Pathfinder 2e, and that could be like the name of the video. It's too late.
That was the first.
Dustin,
yeah,
there were 2 votes for 5.
Yeah.
There are 2 votes for 1, but there are 3 votes for 4.
So one thing that I'm looking at right off the bat here is that our standard bestiary Minotaur is a level 4 creature.
Yes.
Minotauriarty.
Minotauriarty. Well, you know what? I got art for Minotauriarty for the Minotaur ancestry. So look forward to that one when it comes out in Year of Monsters. But we've got a level 4 Minotaur stat block is one of our options here.
Yeah.
So for
we are level 7. So we're probably gonna want to we can start with that as a baseline and then give it some more kick.
If we had a level 4 Minotaur and a level 4 Buddy, that would be vastly, for example, would be vastly a trivial encounter.
So how hard do we want this encounter to be for those PCs?
So given that it's a gladiatorial combat where we're sent into the arena to fight them, and that it's based on the Hades Elysium boss fight, which is like the end boss of that level, I'm assuming that this is supposed to be a severe encounter.
It really feels that way, yeah.
Because like, you get into the arena, these are the champions, and it's Asterius and Theseus.
So if there's a severe encounter, are we gonna split the our XP budget equally between our 2 combatants? So
I think that we probably should.
Team? I think that makes a lot of sense.
In which case, you would think that they're both level 8, and that's what you would do. We may want to consider a situation where like they're both level 7, and when you defeat one of them, the other one gets buffs, because that's sort of what happens in Hades, right?
Oh yeah, we can totally do that.
After you beat the first one, then like if you beat Asterius, then Theseus starts doing some ridiculous weird stuff, and if you defeat Theseus, Asterius' attacks get stronger.
The other one gains a big buff.
So we theoretically could do that, and it would sort of be in between a moderate and severe at that point, because 2 level 7s is moderate, But 2 level 7s, one of which gets a large buff after the other one defeated, is not quite severe since the buff only actually happens after you defeat one of them.
Is roughly
So it's sort of moderate plus in challenge level. So that's what we're gonna do here. And we've got 2 level 7s, and that also means we won't have to raise the Minotaur that much. So now, how did I know that we wanted 2 level 7s for this, and that if we had 2 level 8s and didn't do a gimmick, that would be a severe encounter? So let's take a look at the XP budget, table 10.1 in your core rulebook on page 489. Table 10.1 tells you that there are 5 types of encounter in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, this is really important. You may be used to, well, almost every other game that also has about 5 difficulty levels of encounters, but they're all too easy, including the ones that are rated as deadly or extremely challenging. When Pathfinder 2nd Edition tells you how hard an encounter is and how much degree of threat it has, it's being very serious. If it says it has a moderate level of threat, that doesn't mean that, oh yeah, you know, this is just a milquetoast lukewarm encounter. It means there's a moderate amount of actual threat that is in this encounter. If it says it has a severe amount of threat, that means there's a severe amount of threat. You're probably still going to win. It's set up so you have the advantage, but it's quite threatening. If it says extreme, which is defined as like a coin flip, other than the PCs maybe using consumable resources or being very, very clever in tactics,
then you're going to want to make sure that if you're going to throw an extreme, that you have... It's probably going to be like a higher level party. You're going to have like a significant setup where they've got more advantages on their side. This is going to be like your final boss, or like something where you want the stakes to just feel completely over the top.
Or if you know your group.
Yeah.
In a pre-published adventure, you might never want to use an extreme, or very rarely. And so a low threat encounter does not mean that, oh, this is ridiculously easy, I'm just going to close my eyes and win. It means there is a small amount of actual threat in the encounter, but not very much. And
now, a trivial one, that is where
trivial just means basically you auto win, but you not necessarily like auto win right away.
Yeah.
But if you auto attack it, it probably will eventually die with some amount of damage.
Yeah.
Like a fight in a lot of like, you know, JRPGs that just randomly happens and you just hit attack a bunch of times. Then the monsters die, but you took some damage along the way. And some people in chat were talking about almost TPKing. It can definitely happen, especially if you don't keep this in mind. So they each have an XP budget. Now, we were shooting for maybe around severe, which is 120 experience points. How do we decide? Also, if you have more or fewer characters in your party, you add more or less experience than that. Now, how do you decide how much XP everything is worth? It depends on its relative level compared to the party level. In Pathfinder 2e, you need 1,000 XP to level up, no matter what level you are. And monsters give you XP depending on their relative level. A monster that is, or creature 1 level higher than you gives 60, which means 2 of them would be 120. Exactly, bingo on our severe. That's why Linda and I said, oh, well, if there were 2 level 8s, that would be severe.
Whereas 2 creatures that are the same level of you are each 40, so if you have 2 of those, then it's a moderate encounter.
That would be 80, a moderate encounter. Now, we're going to have 2 of those, but give a large buff to whichever of them survives after the first one goes down.
So I saw at least some other conceptual stuff popping up in chat. Minotaur Barbarian, Giant Instinct with an axe from a Titan. So we can go with like some ragey powers for the Minotaur.
So we can definitely make the Minotaur
or,
like...
yeah, that could also be the thematics of the big part of the thematics of the big buff.
Yes, is that it gets angrier.
Minotaur level
so
7
the main thing about this
axe.
is that it's going to get a very large buff when the other one goes down. It needs to be quite substantial because we are making these guys 1 level lower in total in order for a buff to happen on one of them, possibly after they're both injured. Now, if you knew about the buffs and you're like, well, I'll injure them equally, then you're also not getting rid of one of them, and so you have to fight them both the whole time. Also similar to the Hades fight that this encounter is sort of based on.
So if the Minotaur has like sort of a basic anger ability in the start, in the beginning, and then the idea is that then the idea is that anchor ability causes it to become even more damaging, or that kind of thing. If you then have already defeated the gladiator, then that would make it easier to write, because it's like this ability kind of upgrades or augments.
That's right.
Whenever
so
you have
let's
this
take a
on.
look at some of the NPC. Oh, I see. It has all these weird ones from Adventure Paths.
You can hit, if you filter it by
if I
source.
filter it by
Show all filters.
If I filter it by
should have a source filter, yep.
Then I could probably filter it by source and go
hit
for rulebooks, and that should give me just the ones from the Game Mastery Guide.
And not accidentally have
so
spoilers
I've gone on Archives of Nethys. And I am
sort
now
by level, maybe?
going to sort by level and find something that did not sort by
That's
level.
by level.
At all.
That's by name first, then level second.
Then I will sort by level and not name. There we go. So I'm looking here
not
for
that I've
NPCs
used Nethys search a million times.
that are going to be at the correct level for the level that we want. So some NPCs we can have our hunter, cult leader, demonologist, gang leader are all level 7. So
if we want to pick one up right out of the box.
If we want to pick one up right out of the box here, I think that what we actually, let's see. I don't think any of these is going to give us exactly what we want to be Theseus.
Yeah, I don't
so
think
we're probably going to have to make our own creature for the Theseus. Whereas for the Minotaur, it won't be too bad. What I would suggest for the Minotaur is that we're going to buff the Minotaur's stats up to level 7. Do not just use the elite adjustments for creatures, because if you use that 3 times, it's just going to get out of control.
So I'd say probably buff them up to level 7.
And give some more abilities.
We'll probably be using and give abilities themed after Giant Instinct Barbarian.
So I think that Giant Instinct Barbarian doesn't necessarily have abilities that are...
Would work for this? Oh, right, because it's already large,
I don't find them to be actually legitimately that much of a difference to what the Minotaur itself already has.
That's a fair point. So what about Barbarian themed, though?
So we can potentially like give it bonus damage, but we can just give it the bonus damage. It makes it a little simpler for us to run.
So we can use in that case we can use moderate accuracy.
And we're not going to actually build all
Stream
the stats
damage.
of every creature that are in here. We're going to build the encounter.
Yeah. So when I think about the gladiator, I'm thinking about trying to maybe take some inspiration from the gladiator archetype, where you've got things like rolling performance for initiative and like gaining temporary, this whole thing about like gaining temporary hit points for being like, the people are cheering for me.
So let's give the Minotaur these following abilities. So it has attacks. It can have like a leap attack. It already has a bull rush ability, so that's fine. So it can have like a leap attack where it creates a shockwave when it lands, and then an axe spin where it sort of spins in a tornado and moves around the battlefield.
As well as an axe spin. So your axe spin is probably going to be a 3 action type thing that does damage in an area and also allows the Minotaur to move.
That's right. And the initial arena might have some pillars that you can use to take cover.
What an oddly
and
specific.
The axe spin would be able to destroy those pillars as it moves through. Obviously. See, King Reb Johnson agreed that there should be obstacles to hinder both sides to make it more interesting. See?
So, and that
it's
also
just completely come up with out of nowhere.
So this could actually then, instead of calling it moderate plus, we could just flat out call it a severe, and then we can throw in some collapsible pillars.
But I don't think that the collapsible pillars actually make it harder for the PCs. They make it easier because you can take cover against PCs.
I was assuming that it depends upon what happens when those pillars collapse, right?
I mean, if they're bad for the person it collapses on, then it's going to be bad for our monsters, because it's always going to collapse on the Minotaur.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And then we have pillars for cover.
So we have pillars for cover, which probably mostly help you against Theseus.
When they take damage.
Yep. So, what do we have if we are Theseus? Because we're just literally making this
We're just
Hades
literally
fight.
making
We might
Hades
as
fight.
well.
Might as well.
Okay, so Theseus is going to have a
He's gonna be able to throw spears.
throw his spear, and
my God.
it's returning.
Throw his returning spear.
Yep. And then also a spear spin attack in melee.
Probably a 2-action one.
Yep. And then an ability where the Minotaur throws the gladiator at you, which is like the barbarian feat where you throw your ally at someone.
So the Minotaur ability to throw gladiator.
Only if they're both around.
Ability to throw adjacent gladiator. Or gladiator within reach.
That's right.
Because he might have reached within reach. At target for damage. What was that barbarian ability called? Like the barbarian ability where you throw people at stuff?
The barbarian ability, it's one of the feats for barbarian. I can't remember its exact name.
Like the barbarian feat?
So, yeah, there's one where the Minotaur can they have 2 team attacks. The Minotaur either throws the gladiator like that, or the Minotaur charges into the gladiator's shield, creating a damaging wave attack.
So we now know that the gladiator has a shield also.
Yes, it's a shield in one hand and like a throwing sort of a throwing spear. I think not a long spear.
Damaging shockwave. This is probably going to be small radius, unlimited area damage.
But yeah, he definitely has a
2
shield
actions.
that would use to defend attacks, so you would have to worry about the shield or like attack when he hasn't had enough actions to raise his shield.
2 actions and does not damage him or the gladiator.
Yep.
Yeah, can totally do it.
Also, when the gladiator is below half health, then he's going to do a special move where he calls upon the gods. And that is going to cause him to cast, let's see. What level is Divine Wrath? Divine Wrath is spell level 4. So let's say maybe he casts a 5th level Divine Wrath, even though he's level 7, which you normally should not be able to cast a 5th level spell. On his next turn, he casts a 5th level Divine Wrath for whatever alignment he wants, because he just calls on a deity that he thinks will hit the most people in your party.
Someone in chat made a point. What does unlimited area damage mean? So, I was getting a little ahead of
Linda
myself.
is getting a little ahead of herself because we're building, she's building more of the details of this creature than we would necessarily have to build the encounter.
Yeah.
Unlimited area damage is one of the numbers that, if you were here when we built a monster in the Build a Monster workshop, you can find in the building creatures that there's a table for damage that you could just use anytime you want versus damage that has a long cooldown, or you can only use once per day or something like that. That's usually twice as much.
So limited area damage is like the Dragon's Breath weapon, where it's got to wait 1d4 rounds before it uses again, and unlimited area damage is like that kind of area damage that you can spam every round.
turn.
So I was thinking, this would probably, so what I meant by that was that the ability would probably be built so that the Minotaur could continue charging into the shield of the gladiator every round, rather than being a sort of ability that's built so that the Minotaur can only occasionally
Also, it could do more damage, but take some of the actions of both of them, for example. The 2 team attacks. So we do a Divine Wrath for whatever alignment we want, just other than True Neutral, which you could never do a Divine Wrath for. And then let's talk about what the buff is like. When one of the 2 of them is defeated, then we want this encounter to be we want this to be appropriately challenging. Now, they could have been level 8 the entire time.
Also, the fact that they have team attacks as part of their repertoire, that's part of their balance and their power.
So they're gonna lose those 2 team attacks when one of them dies, and we were trying to make this severe, so they could have been level 8 the entire time.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking here is that if we look back to the original sort of Hades situation here, they just kind of get more damaging and faster at movement and their attack speed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what that happens with them. So it's more of a statistical buff rather than like unlocking a bunch of new effects that they're going to use.
And we probably wouldn't want to unlock a bunch of new effects. Like I was saying before, if we did something that was like this ability upgrades or whatever in some way.
So what we could do is give a sort of... I said we didn't use Elite to start out, but we can do a sort of Elite Plus, where the one that survives kind of gets +3 to everything, where Elite normally gives +2. It's sort of 1.5 of Elite. Now, here's why this is better than Elite in some ways, or can be more effective. It's because of the fact that Elite.
And how many HP do we want to give for this?
Elite is sort of rounding up the effect of going up a level. Now, what Elite is in Pathfinder 2 is an adjustment you can make to level a monster up by 1 quickly, easily. It a little bit overestimates their numbers, but it doesn't give them anything except for numbers. It might make them a little too strong if they already had powerful abilities before you use the Elite adjustment. Or if their abilities really would have needed to level up to get stronger, they might be a little too weak. Like a spellcaster that was about to get a new level of spells. It's hard to call what happens. What we're doing is when it's down to just one of them, they get a sort of 1.5 times Elite.
So normally what Elite does is that basically it gives the creature +2 to a bunch of stuff, and then it gives it a number of hit points based on its starting level.
Correct.
So Elite would normally give 20 hit points for a creature of that level, so if we're doing kind of a 1.5 times thing,
we can 30 more hit points.
Instead of +2 and 20 more hit points, we can say +3 and 30 more hit points.
Yes, which is sort of like if they were both level 8 to begin with, they each would have had 15 more, but this way... If the party gets both of them down really close, at least there's a 30 hit point buffer that goes on the one that's still
what happens too is we can say like these are temporary hit points, so that kind of fits with that gladiator theme of like the crowd is cheering and they're completely bolstered.
So they get 30 temporary hit points and a +3 to AC, attacks, DCs, saving throws, perception, skill modifiers, and damage. Plus I guess the Divine Wrath, if you still haven't triggered it from the Gladiator, goes up to 6th level, because that's about right. For the +3 to damage would be to, like, strike damage, and then the 6th level Divine Wrath gives 5.5 more, which the Elite Adjustment says give about... 1.5 Elite Adjustment would give about 6 more with its AoE. So if you haven't happened to trigger his Divine Wrath yet for getting him down to half... Now, importantly, Linda's thing about temporary hit points makes sure that we don't, like, get him down to half more than once in the fight.
Yes, if we get him down to, if we get, well, the temporary, if we don't knock someone down and then have them, like, get back up and, like, keep stacking and things like that, because you're not gonna, temporary hit points are not gonna, like, keep piling onto themselves.
So, this is what we have. We've built a severe encounter for 7th level PCs, where you fight against a Minotaur Gladiator and a human Gladiator friend. It's basically the Hades boss encounter from the end of Elysium. There are pillars that the Minotaur can possibly destroy. Minotaur has a leap attack with a shockwave, a spinning attack, and a bull rush charge, plus like regular axe attacks. The human gladiator has a shield, throws a spear, makes a spinning attack with a spear, and they have 2 combo attacks where the Minotaur throws the human gladiator, or where the Minotaur charges into the gladiator's shield and creates a damaging shockwave.
And the adjustment for when one of the 2 of them is defeated is like a pretty quick and straightforward one to add. You're not gonna have to like be looking and cross-referencing things. It's just like, oh, another +3 fancy pants bonus.
Yes. +3 fancy pants bonus. In the one instance where you need the Divine Wrath, it goes up to a 6th level Divine Wrath. And 30 temporary hit points.
Yes.
So that should be relatively easy to run. I think it's also true to the spirit of the Hades Elysium boss fight. So it probably will feel to the Hades fans like they were doing that boss fight as well. And they may be just as annoyed with Theseus in this boss fight as they would have been in actual Hades. Although at least this time they will have 4-2 instead of a 2-1. Situation like in Hades.
So in this case, we we had the pillars for cover. We didn't have the environment playing like necessarily a huge role in this. I kind of want to do the idea that was the won the second most votes here, the solo boss fight on a rickety bridge, because I feel like the rickety bridge could definitely add some interesting dynamics.
Okay,
so
we're gonna also build a boss fight on a rickety bridge that is not exactly the boss fight from Hades.
Yes.
So it's also gonna be for our same 7th level party. So on a rickety bridge.
So we know we got a solo boss.
We've got a solo, and we know it's a boss.
Yes.
That means it's probably a 9th or a 10th level creature, depending on if it is a moderate or severe boss. We probably don't want a low threat boss encounter, because that's like, it's a little weird. I mean, we theoretically could do it.
And solo severes can sometimes be like pretty tricky.
At level 7, I would say I'd allow it, but
and it also doesn't necessarily leave room to do that much with the environment if you throw it all into the creature.
Well, it could still be a severe encounter that is with a level 9 creature, but then the fact that it's a rickety bridge.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm saying if you just threw it all the way to make it the 10th level creature right out the bat, then you wouldn't have
the rickety bridge would have to be equally bad for the creature and the PCs if it was 10th level. In fact, it may be worse for the big creature than it is for the PCs.
That's also possible if the bridge is more of an advantage. So, what do folks think? Do you guys think that the rickety bridge is generally better for the PCs, generally better for the boss, or about equally problematic to both of them?
So you can type that in chat. Meanwhile, I'm getting Nethys to show me all of the level 9 to 10 creatures, but I'm gonna try to turn off adventure paths and look at the bestiary ones.
No spoilers. Let's see.
I'll take Lost Omens ones too.
We have equal.
So we have a thought for equal, and players prefer when they can take advantage of the environment as well. So there you go. So we're going to not have it so the bridge is just bad for the PC. So it's not just like a flying monster attacking them when they're on a rickety bridge.
So level 7 creature, so not a flying monster.
So we know it's not like the adult white dragon, for example, on this rickety bridge. So as you may have expected, there's a lot of possible monsters that meet the criteria that we asked for. In fact, Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a startling 122 monsters merely in the rulebooks and Lost Omens books alone that we can use that are in the level range of 9 to 10. So there's a lot of options here. Now I can't put like not flying in the search here. So a lot of them actually are flying. There's quite a variety of dragons, for example, that are in this level range. So we need to find something that is good that is not flying. Like, for example, a Troll King could be an example. Trolls and bridges, I think, are very iconic.
Oh, yeah.
What do people think about a Troll King? Tell me in chat if you like Troll King for the bridge. Bridge Troll. It's a giant 2-headed troll. Let's see what it's got. It's got a vigorous shake, too, where it shakes itself.
Let's see. It's suggested
and a primordial
dragon
roar.
with a broken wing that can't fly, and bridge troll, exclamation point. Sheppy says, Sheppy's trying to make them an isometric, keep adding monsters.
Oh, no.
Sheppy would prefer an agile opponent.
Opponent.
Another vote for bridge troll.
Right, because Sheppy's going to make them in isometric for us, and we made 2 encounters. And we keep adding monsters. So it looks like a lot of people like Troll King.
All right, we got a Troll King. What level is Troll King?
Level 10. So the Troll King is also having some trouble with this rickety bridge.
All right, so if a bridge shakes and is rickety, for example, and you want to keep your balance, then you're probably going to want to be decently acrobatic for that. How is our acrobatics of Bridge Troll? Oh, Bridge Troll does not have acrobatics, huh?
So I think that what happens here with the bridge is that we can say that the bridge is a problem for everybody. The fact that it's rickety. So let's make it so it debuffs the Bridge Troll, but the Bridge Troll doesn't have to try off acrobatics. Or its lousy reflex that much, because it's big enough that its center of gravity is such that it's not gonna, like,
completely
topple over, but it's going to possibly, like, maybe automatically get clumsy when it uses certain of its moves.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if it uses its Vigorous Shake ability, maybe every time the bridge troll uses Vigorous Shake, Primordial Roar, or Unstoppable Charge, it automatically gains the Clumsy 2 condition for 1 round.
Vigorous Shake.
While the bridge shakes. And the other PCs, all the PCs need to attempt a reflex save or acrobatics check to balance their choice. And potentially become flat-footed or fall prone on a critical failure. What do you think?
That sounds legit.
Also, we can just say flat-footed. Maybe just flat-footed instead of clumsy for the Troll King. So the Troll King is automatically flat-footed. It gets no save.
Yes.
And the PCs are either flat-footed or possibly
that keeps
flat-footed
it consistent between the effects of two.
That feels more consistent.
So that also is kind of like the Troll is automatically failing the save, but not going to critically fail. The PCs must all attempt reflex saves. Or become flat-footed.
We can, and it looks like...
Or prone.
Let's make the reflex save DC for this, like...
Shouldn't be too
The Troll's
high.
own roar is a 29.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what do you think?
Let's see. If roar is a 29, maybe...
And we're only actually falling prone on a critical failure. So
that's a fair point.
We could make it a 30 to use a simple DC.
That totally works. So being flat-footed isn't too
as long
terrible.
as you can get at least a 21 and not roll a natural 1, then you're just going to be flat-footed, which is not too bad. And the Troll is always flat-footed when it uses those abilities. And then Grant Johnson says, let's say it can collapse in the worst-case scenario. So I agree.
Yes.
So... Additionally, whenever it uses Vigorous Shake, Primordial Roar, and Unstoppable Charge, not only do the PCs have to roll their favorite of a acrobatics check to balance or a reflex save DC 30 to see if they become flat-footed or fall prone, but also it deals, let's say, 1d4 damage to the Rickety Bridge.
And how many hit points does this bridge have?
And let's say that the Rickety Bridge has 15 hit points. What do you think?
So
it probably isn't going to collapse, because King Graham John said, let's make it a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
It probably won't, because, on average, it's going to take 6 uses of abilities, and one of them is a reaction.
But the PCs then could also choose, for example, to run off the bridge and deliberately collapse the bridge once they realize this is happening and try to send the Troll falling into
I guess that's true if we say it only... Okay, you're right. And bridges shouldn't have 15 hit points anyway. It was way too low of a number. Let's say that the bridge has 150 hit points and takes 10d4 damage each time that happens instead. It's exactly the same.
But it feels more... But it gives the idea that the bridge is... It's a little hard for the PCs to collapse
and the PCs can't just slash it once with the sword and be like, okay, the fight is done because I did 15 damage.
I just fell the troll into... One of the things about encounter design is what are the PCs going to do? It's great to allow for creative solutions, but you also don't necessarily want like an auto win button.
You made a very good point. I was just looking at the number of hits. Another thing you could do if you just don't want to deal with hit points is just be like, it collapses after 6 times of using the ability, and that's just what it is.
So what happens if the bridge collapses? I imagine that anyone on the bridge takes damage based on the distance that the bridge falls?
Yes. I assume that the bridge is going to fall into, like... I'm imagining water is below.
Yeah, it falls into a rushing river.
You fall into a rushing river.
So you don't take as much damage when you fall
You fall 100 feet into a rushing river, which would normally be 50 damage if you didn't fall into water. But if you fall into water... River? I think it does less.
Yeah, I recall water falling doing less, but
that may have been in PF1. I can't remember. I think
water,
it is. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
If you treat it as if it's 20 feet shorter.
Or 30 if you you did not intentionally die.
So you take 40 damage. Everyone will take 40 damage and then be swept away by the river at that point.
And being swept away
which
by
the Troll King
river.
can regenerate from.
Also, the Troll's good at like athletics, so the Troll's gonna be fine with swimming, whereas your PCs may not be quite so fine. Let's see.
They might. You don't know. And hey, if you hit it with acid or fire right before you do that, you could die from the fall.
Oh yeah, it totally could. Splat.
So I think that's actually we kind of an encounter.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, just Troll King on the bridge already did most of the work, and so a Troll King is 3 levels higher than the party. That means it's worth on its own 120 XP.
Mm-hmm.
It used the entire severe budget. But it is going to be flat-footed basically all the time if it uses any of its special abilities. Because obviously, like a loud shaking roar or unstoppably charging or even a vigorous shake, which literally is a shake. It says it shakes itself to remove persistent acid or fire effects. Are all going to possibly shake the bridge. And in fact, if it succeeds on its vigorous shake, it can immediately primordial roar, which will then cause it to shake the bridge twice.
And I can say be swept away by the swiftly flowing river, because then we know from the rules for swim what the DC is for swiftly flowing river.
So, we have a great question here. The question says, should I give less XP if the party is bigger than 4? So let's talk a little bit about what to do if you have a party of a different size. We just built 2 encounters for a level 7 party with 4 PCs. Here's how it works if your party has a different number of people. Now, if it's smaller, you may have to more than compensate for the missing party member because you start compensating for the party not having a wide variety of roles. Like, it's like, oh, I only have 1 person, so I don't have a front line.
Yeah.
And if that 1 person goes down, the fight is over.
Also, the swings of luck hit a lot harder when you only have 1 person. Like a critical hit against your only PC is pretty devastating compared to a critical hit against one of 4 people.
That's because the percentage of your party that goes unconscious is higher the fewer people you have. So, not ignoring that way that swings go against you, the way that you calculate it is for every extra character you have, you add a certain amount of XP to the monsters, but you don't give XP for that extra XP that you added for the extra character.
You have more budget to build your encounter.
You have a higher budget, but you don't actually award the extra XP. So, for example, we just built 2 severe encounters. We had 120. We sort of did a weird thing in the first one where we only spent 80, but then we gave a large buff and then we called it good. In this encounter, we spent 120. We then put a debuff that affected everyone and said it wasn't worth any XP, which is probably pretty fair. If we had a 5th character, we would be able to add 30 XP more. Now, if we were adding 30 XP more, that would mean that we were able to add a... we would not be able to add a creature of our level. We'd be able to add a -1, so like a 6th level... creature. Now, there are certain trolls that are family of the Troll King that would fit into there, such as Cavern Troll.
Yeah, so we could say add a Cavern Troll to the bridge.
Add a Cavern Troll for each additional PC. Obviously, you need to check the map to make sure you can fit the Cavern Trolls.
Yes, now, and you're going to need to think about how those Cavern Trolls are going to interact with the collapsing bridge. Maybe you're going to want to make a slight variant of a Cavern Troll who's got a little bit of acrobatics or a slightly better reflex save so they're not completely tripped, because the idea being that the trolls were not going to be messed up quite so badly.
That's right.
Or maybe the trolls get automatically flat-footed, or
maybe
the same way
all
the
of them
ones
do. Maybe all large creatures do get that instead of possibly falling prone. Now, if you had 3 characters, you'd be able to have up to 90 XP. You'd lose 30 XP from your budget, but you still give them 120 for beating it. So when you adjust the budget for a different number of PCs, you don't adjust the actual XP for the encounter. That's how it works. So, for example, with 90, that would be slightly more than enough to add a 9th level monster, but we couldn't add a 10th. So what we could do is put the weak adjustment on the Troll King. That would actually put it down to 80, which is like about right.
It's about right. Yeah.
It's a almost severe.
And like you said, when sometimes you have to adjust down a little more when you're talking about the smaller parties.
That's
so
right.
That
so
should
it's
feel
probably
about right. Yeah.
Other than that, weak sometimes just like we talked about elite overestimating the addition, sometimes weak slightly overestimates the subtraction.
Yes,
weak
but
is
they're simple.
Weak is the opposite of elite. It gives penalties to everything to let you move the monster down a level. So for 3 PCs, we could do that. For 2 PCs, well, this encounter is way too hard for that. We would probably replace it. We would only have 60 XP. Maybe replace it with 2 Cavern Trolls to begin with.
Yeah.
instead of even trying to get into a situation with the Troll King or a two-headed troll.
Yeah.
Actually, a two-headed troll is level 8.
So we could use that as our
use
solo.
a two-headed troll.
Yeah.
And I think that would
have the trolls' heads arguing with each other on the bridge.
That would be about right.
About whether or not, about how they're going to crush the two PCs. Maybe they have different ideas over which one they want to crush first.
That's right. So there we have it. We built the Hades Elysium encounter with Theseus and Asterius, and then we built a Troll King on a bridge encounter. Both of these using the encounter building rules, and we made them a little complicated. The one with Theseus and Asterius isn't too complicated with the environment. The pillars are mostly just cover and knocking them down. Don't underestimate how much the cover can matter. Also, the weird combo attacks and the special spell that triggers on half health and the buff when one of them goes down for that first encounter does give it some more complexity. The second one, the shaking bridge, not only adds a little complexity, it adds a little urgency to the encounter too. Because you can tell the PCs, it's like, oh, the bridge is about halfway done. And by the time you say that, the party is probably going to be, like, have gotten some pretty good progress on the troll, but they still might start getting antsy, be like, oh no, it's only halfway, we better finish this fight fast, especially since it's a regenerating creature, and if they haven't been able to figure out how to deal with its regeneration, they might not be halfway done.
You might have other aspects that are added into your encounter too. You might choose to throw in some full-on hazards, for example. Have a complex hazard that's acting round over round. You might have some terrain that's dangerous, like in the same way that you have sort of the threat of the river below, or things that might be like, difficult terrain, but not necessarily for the creature that lives there because they're used to that, acclimated to that area. Or maybe some PCs have abilities to be better in that area, so then that assists them. Or there's all sorts of little things you can do to spice up encounters beyond sort of the baseline of take monsters out of the bestiary. Take monsters out of the bestiary and put them on the map is totally cool too. One of the things that we've talked about in some of our adventure building episodes in the past is kind of like, if every encounter is like interesting and fancy and spicy, then it kind of starts to lose its luster after a while. So mixing things up, so you've got some encounters that are easy and some encounters that are hard, some encounters that are techy and complicated, some encounters that are straightforward, really helps to change the pacing of the game. And
these both feel like end of a mini adventure situation.
And that's appropriate because they're both severe encounters. So you're gonna expect when you build a severe encounter that you probably also want it to have more interest and more punch and more ways that you can interact with it, because also having those more things in a severe encounter gives the PCs more options to strategize and to try to figure things out.
Yep. Considering Warlock says, don't forget occasional straightforward encounters is good advice. That's true. That was one of the things Linda put in the section on building complex encounters in the Game Mastery Guide, where it's like, you can do this, but just like keep in mind, if you do it every time, it's like throwing all the spices in your spice tray into every dish that you ever make. And sometimes you get a little.
And having low and trivial encounters is important to the story too, to reduce sort of the threat level, to let things be less dangerous than the PC's thought, to show how much stronger they've become now than they used to be.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
This is something Linda says all the time.
Sometimes PCs just want to sudden charge centipedes and boars. Absolutely.
That's right. And so sometimes they can.
And that's another thing too, in terms of complexity. It also matters. How complex the creatures are and how many things they have going on. Like if you're throwing a lot of encounters with like, I'm a prepared spellcaster, I've got this giant list, versus like, you know what, this is a mindless creature. It's just gonna keep doing its thing. It's just gonna... It goes up to the nearest creature and it attacks that creature consistently. And Mark waves his hands in my face. Yes, that is exactly what happens.
That's what happens.
So yeah, that was Encounter Building. Thank you so much for joining us, folks.
Stick around and we'll figure out what our next episode is. But first, let's say bye to YouTube. Bye, YouTube!
Bye!